I like to joke, right? This is my running joke that it's your typical Jewish love story.
Yeah.
Jewish girl meets non-Jewish boy in prison, right?
Yeah.
No, obviously I'm being facetious. It's not your typical Jewish love story, but I had a contraband cell phone in prison, right? I mean, we all need our cell phones, right? So for sure, me being in prison, I definitely wanted and used the cell phone. So when I met her, I was like, look, I got 9 years to go. They're talking about changing the law, but it's just talk. Put it in your head that I got 9 years to go. And then she essentially would say, like, oh, don't worry, I'm davening. We hope we get out in half that time. But as with Hashem, I ended up getting out in half that time.
Welcome to Talk Jewish to Me, brought to you by Aish, which is the show that discusses important issues like Jewish identity, spiritual growth, raising a Jewish family, and more. We are your hosts, Ladero and Danielle Hart, and we're excited to have you here.
Whether you're a returning listener or a first-time listener, we want to thank you for joining us. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and like this video on YouTube or your favorite podcasting platform. And let us know, what do you think about this episode in the comments?
In this episode, we are talking with Dr. Yehudah Pryce, and we talk about school. We talk about his journey from prison to Jewish life, marriage, family, and the whole nine. You guys are in for a real treat. Yehudah Pryce was a full participant in street warfare with rival gang members. He was a teenager who made a living robbing drug dealers. He was a gangster by choice, eventually making the decision to become a Jew by choice, a choice born within the confines of prison. Arrested as a teenager, over 16 years completed of a 24-year prison sentence was the incredible prelude to his entry into an Orthodox Jewish conversion program. Yehudah completed his Bachelor's of Arts in Sociology, his Master in Social Work, and his Doctorate in Social Work. Yehudah Pryce currently resides in Irvine, California with his wife and 3 children.
So without further ado, Dr. Yehudah Pryce.
Dr. Yehudah Pryce.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that intro, but y'all know me as Yehudah, you know, so.
Oh, man, it's so good to finally be able to have this long-awaited conversation, brother. Thank you so much for carving out the time to be able to chit-chat with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for having me. I mean, this is a very proud moment for myself, right? I remember when initially making contact with you and your first, entry kind of into our community, and how you just became a staple in our community and have brought so much love and this positive energy, this positive qualitative family energy about you that I think has impacted so many. So I'm glad to be in your space.
Oh, man, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So for those who are watching, I know maybe some of you guys have heard our story a little bit, and we talk about this gentleman right here. He's played an incredible role in our journey, just like you mentioned.
Yeah, we can't even mention how many times we said shout out to Dr. Yehudah Pryce, right? So many times. So thank you, because a lot of, how we came about this community was him searching up you and finding you, and then you connecting the dots. So
boom.
We're just grateful Hashem connected the dots as well. I mean, everything comes from him. Yeah.
Baruch Hashem. But I would say, I'll throw out there, right? I know this is your interview with me, but nonetheless, I want to for sure say that, I mean, there's a lot of different people who go on a journey for Judaism for different reasons, right? And it's very personal, very, intimate between you and the creator. But when Ladero reached out to me, it wasn't just him, right? I seen his wife, I seen his family, I met y'all, I seen y'all on board, and I'm like, wow. Right, the cohesiveness, the way y'all function together, Klal Yisrael, the people of Israel, right? The Jewish people are blessed to have you as part of us, right? And so that's why I was so supportive, based on just who you were, right, and who you are.
Wow. Thank you. That means a lot.
That does mean a lot.
It means a lot. So we got a lot to talk about. Yeah. We have a lot to talk about. So many questions. I mean, your story, this time that we've been knowing you, it's been we've been impacted by just your personal journey, your family, and we're so pumped for all of the viewers, all of the listeners to get a chance to really, really dive into Yehudah Pryce's life. It's a life that, I mean, it's just impactful. So I'll let him explain everything, right? These episodes, we don't like to be the ones talking the most, so we like our guests to be the ones to kind of start sharing life. So look, I want to start here. So when people view your Instagram profile, click on your links, they're so intrigued with what they see, right? I mean, it's just this. You go to like some of the old pictures. I was actually kind of scrolling through earlier today, and you see this incredible transformation.
Yeah.
You were in prison for 16 years, and now you're living as an Orthodox Jew. Like, I mean, even there's so much within that, but let's start with, why were you in prison?
Well, why I was in prison, I mean, I could sum it up as I was an active gangster, right? I was dedicated to criminality. The thing about me is, it's not hard for me to become committed to something, right? It's just, what is the thing I'm being committed to, right? And so back then, I was a hardcore gangster, right? Those were my ethos. Those were the sort of that was the culture or subculture I operated in. That it eventually led me. I was going in and out of juvenile hall, right? I don't want to act like this is just a one-time mistake, right? This was a history of poor choices, right? A history of a young Black man in America dealing with identity, dealing with people's perception of me and my response to that. And I made a whole bunch of poor choices, eventually leading to me being incarcerated for a robbery. And they gave me 4 years for the robbery. They give me 20 years in enhancements, 10 years for the crime being for the benefit of a gang, and because a gun was displayed during the commission of the crime. Now, some of these particular enhancements or whatnot, the laws changed, right? But as it was, I was sentenced to a quarter century in prison for those particular things, right? And that's where my journey started.
So, I mean, with you saying all of that, like, what do you think? I mean, we know you said poor decisions, right? But what was life like before, prison for you? Like, what made you go down that route or make those decisions?
Yeah, those are good questions. Questions that I have thought about a lot. I had to actually think about this a lot too when I prepared to go before the parole board to earn my early release, right? I served a little bit over 16 years out of that 24-year sentence because a particular law changed, right? And it allowed me to present my case. So I had to really, really do a lot of self-reflection. I think for me, I felt unseen, right? I was raised, I wasn't raised with my biological father. I was raised by my mother and my white stepfather, right? And so that caused a lot of I don't know during the adolescence how anybody else experienced their adolescence, but there was awkwardness. There was a lot of self-consciousness about myself. I was challenged of not being authentically Black and not being able to assimilate as anything else, right, in society, right? And so and also there's that other function of, like, when I'm walking down the street, right, if I see somebody, I've had many experiences where people walk across the street, right? So people fear me for, just for who I am, right? Now, I can unpack that now as I'm an adult, but when I was a kid, this really affected me, right?
Right.
When I was told by people like, hey, you have to smile more, right? Not just because they thought I had a great smile, but they felt like when I'm not smiling, I'm intimidating people, right? And so this sort of connected to this Blackness. How do I respond to that? Do I embrace it? Do I want to be feared or gain some sort of power or be seen for some in a particular way that seems possible for me at the moment, right? And that's what I did. And again, I think this is part of who I am as a person, is that I don't know how to take like half-step measures. I don't know how to just get a little bit involved with something. No, I want to be the best at it. And so I felt like I wanted to be the best gangster. And I also knew that a certain sort of structure helped me, function optimally, right? And so I knew how to arrange my life to get the most out of this gangsterism, or the most out of this gangster persona that I was trying to adopt. And so I had to make sure I was hanging with the gangsters. I had to know, who's dealing drugs, I want to rob them. I had to have the pistols on me at all time, right? And so I had to do that because that showed commitment, it showed dedication. And to me, it wasn't about what sort of ethos, what sort of morals and values you had necessarily, right? It was about authenticity and your ability to follow through with those particular values, right? And so I felt I was real, so speak as a term is used, right? And to me, that was a life worth living. That was a life of meaning. That was a life of purpose, even though that purpose had would eventually lead to some pretty hard outcomes.
Well, that's interesting to hear you talk about how you're the type of person that just goes all in with something. You committed, you want to make sure that you were hanging around the drug dealers and so on and so forth. And knowing you now, I see that, I still see that in you, within the Jewish community. You know what I mean? Like you're all into the Jewish community. You want to be around here. You want to hang here. You want to create community. You want to, right? So it's an interesting concept to hear you talk about. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful to see how you flipped it on the other side, right? Like how it was this thug, right? And then now it's all like, I'm a proud Jew, right? And to see you, like when Ladero and I, we see you at shul, you're always like studying, you're focused. So it was like there was always dedication. You just had to focus it to the right thing. And that's great.
I needed God in my life, or I needed to allow God into my life, right? Instead of trying to run from him.
Yeah. So you saying that, let me ask you, like, you growing up, like before prison, did you always have some type of faith walk at all? Was there some spiritual grounding there at home with, kind of growing up at all?
Yeah, I mean, so I was raised nominally Christian. My mom was raised in Sri Lanka in a Muslim family, 9 siblings, right? She eventually converted to Christianity in America.
Okay.
My dad came from a backless background, immigrated from Jamaica. When I say I was raised nominally Christian, it's more so speaking to that, talks that JC it wasn't really mentioned in the household, but on particular religious holidays, we show up in church. My dad used to take me to church when he used to take me to a Baptist church. I mean, one of the jokes, it was a joke, but it wasn't really a joke, was that we try to get in the seat furthest to the back so we could come in late and leave early, right? And so that was my sort of experience, right?
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I mean, anything you're connected to, even culturally, even subconsciously, even just like at that particular level where you're not really delving deep into it and exploring it, it was a part of me. So I would state that, yeah, I'm a Christian before I went into prison. Like that's what I was, right? Yeah. And I think with anything, when you're trying to disassociate yourself with something, that's a process because you're raised with these sort of memories and this nostalgia from connected to familiar things that connected you to your family and to childhood memories. So didn't have a specific faith. And even going into prison, I would say I became, I don't want to say anti-religious, but I was actively questioning other people's religions and spirituality, partly because I was a confrontational jerk, I admit, but on the other part of that is that it's also my mode of inquiry. So in order for me to kind of find out the truth, I have to ask questions. I need answers. And if it's not good enough question, right, I'm gonna ask follow-up. And you can't simply say this is what it is, right? That wasn't enough.
Yeah, that's not good.
Hold me, right?
Yeah. So exactly. We say that all the time. I'm like, that's where we were. And it kind of that sounds like that's a pattern for people who go on this journey. It was just them really asking questions and then maybe not happy with the answers that they were getting. So seeking more. So I guess with that said, what was it? What was that moment while you were in prison that you had to make some changes in your life? Like what caused you to change from, okay, I don't really have a faith really right now, to going to basically Judaism?
Yeah.
Oh, that was a good question. I mean, it was a process. So I remember, and even one of the impetus for me to kind of really explore religion was I was getting transferred. I was about to go to Pelican Bay State Prison, which is a maximum security prison in California.
Yep.
And this was gonna be my first like mainline prison they're sending me to. And I was like, all right, well, I might as well kind of learn about this religion that I am claiming to believe in, especially if it has an eternal component to it, right? I'm saying that there's some sort of everlasting life. I am saying I believe this. And again, me also recognizing that I am an all-in type of person, and also recognizing that there was hesitancy for me wanting to be an all-in type of person behind religion, because that would keep me from doing things that I might have had the freedom to do otherwise, right? Okay. I like to follow myself, right? I like, hey, you know what, I'm doing this because of that, and no sort of societal structure or some sort of other sort of systems or religion was going to dictate that for me. I felt like it was an imposition on my freedom. But nonetheless, let me explore Christianity, right? I got the Catholic Study Bible because there was more books in there, right? So I wanted that. And also there was a concept, and not that I ever had any intention to be Catholic, but there was something that resonated with me in that I remember saying like, wait, hold up, I'm a gangster. And you're saying that some guy who's a pastor and all that is going to be in the same place in heaven that I'm going to be. All I got to just say is my bad, right? Like, my bad. And I'm right there. I mean, like, that don't seem like justice to me. So the concept of a sort of purgatory concept of purifying oneself, right, logically made sense. I'm not going to say like I understand all the theological implications behind that, but it logically. So I wanted to study that as well, since I wasn't raised Catholic. So I wanted that. So I got all the books. I studied the Catholic Study Bible. As a Jew, I like to see the good in everything, right? And so at least that's what I'm like. Oh yeah, inspiring, good. It makes me feel good, right? But the sort of theological leaps that I was forced to do in order to say that this was reality, this was truth, and this was emis, and ultimately that's what I was searching for. I was searching for not something necessarily that made me feel good, right? Even if it made me feel uncomfortable, right? Because change and growth comes through feeling uncomfortable. I prefer that when it's connected to truth and emis. And so when I studied that, I couldn't swallow all of that, right? So to speak, right? Like it wasn't for me. And I took that to mean like when you shatter your belief system that you grew up on, right? My thing wasn't, oh, I need to replace it. My thing was, oh no, religion and spirituality, or at least religion and religious systems, right, are false, right? They're just something that we use because the frailty of being a human being in this world, right, causes us to lean on religion as a weakness, right? We're weak, and so we need religion to carry on, right? Karl Marx, not that I'm into quoting him, but he said at the time, that which I latched onto, is religion is opium for the masses, right? And so I had this sort of hubris to myself, like I'm above this, there's no real system. And so what happened is I ended up becoming, I put my own sort of appellation, my name to it. I said I was a agnostic deist. Now, what does that mean, right? I just kind of just melded two different sort of concepts together, right? The mode of inquiry was sort of this scientific paradigm, and I said, to prove the existence of God or not, it's you can't. So did he exist or did he not? Doesn't really matter. Because I can't prove it. And so that was enough for me, very into like some sort of materialism. But I also had this sort of deist conception, meaning that there was some sort of spiritual entity, I don't know what that looked like, I don't know what it was, who created the world. I just didn't necessarily believe that this entity interacted with human beings, created the world, and kind of. So that was my mode of being. That was my sort of what I believed in, and that's how I went about it. I read the Quran front to back, more of an academic pursuit, studied some Buddhism. I was reading everything, just trying to get knowledge, and more so, I wanted also to understand how people work, right? Like this, right, how do so many people connect to this idea and all that. So I was content, and I felt like I could start making positive changes in my life, more so because I didn't have any sort of option to do anything else for my life, right? So maybe I could just work on myself. What else can I do, right? When you're sentenced to more years than you've been alive, right? It's kind of hard to fathom what your future is going to be like. I went in as a teenager. and I'm thinking, oh, I'm not going to get out until I'm 40 something, right? The 24-year sentence.
Right.
So I'm sitting here like, so what can I do with my life? I can't work towards anything that's going to lead to some sort of successful career, at least as I saw it. But I did say, you know what? The only thing I have control is over who I am and who am I becoming. So I felt like I could work on myself, and with the sort of hubris, the sort of, you know, pride and cockiness that I had, I'm gonna definitely do this without religion, right? So that's how I was, right? That was my orientation, and that's what I was gonna do. And I like to say that I wasn't an evangelical atheist. And so what do I mean by evangelical atheist? Is that you meet people who are atheists, who don't believe in God, who feels like it's their duty to try to convince you, right, that you shouldn't believe in God either, right? Like, I'd be like, look, you don't believe in that. Why are you pushing up on me with that, right? If you truly don't believe in it, why do you care what I believe in, right? And so I wouldn't say I was to that extent, right? But I was definitely quick to challenge anybody who would bring their ideas towards me, right? I was shoot them down. And again, I'm in a hyper masculine environment. I'm in prison. So it's all about confrontation. It's a survival technique. Some people think about, oh, that's a bad way to act, to be confrontational and aggressive. But it's not necessarily a maladaptive. It's adaptive in that setting, right? And so it worked for me. It helped me survive. It was this sort of backdrop that I remember my buddy at the time. He was a porter, so he cleaned the cell block I was on in Pelican Bay, and he told me, he's like, "Hey, they just hired a rabbi, right?" And I'm like, "Hired a rabbi? Let me give y'all some backstory, right? What happened was there was somebody who's Jewish who was incarcerated who filed a lawsuit that led to the California prisons having to provide kosher meals. But what happened was, if there was no rabbi there, people who were incarcerated could petition to be transferred out of that prison. As you can imagine, everybody was trying to get out of Pelican Bay State Prison, right?
Of
so
course.
You had white supremacists signing up for the kosher meal. You had everybody signing up for the kosher meal, right?
Wow.
And they're like, nah. We're going to hire a rabbi, right? So they hired a rabbi just for this, right? So nobody was showing up to services. It wasn't a spiritual need, right? It was sort of a loophole. I'm trying to get out of prison need for the most part. I don't want to speak too broadly. And so my buddy was trying to get out of the cell block, because back then, when you're in a maximum security, the only way you can get out of, you know, your cell block is either you're going to the law library, you're going to go to the nurse, or you're going to religious services, right? And so he would go, but he was the only one there, right? And so he's like, "Hey, I'm feeling kind of awkward, right?" He's another gangbanging buddy. That's all he knew. This is how I connected with them, right? And so he's like, "Yeah, I feel kind of awkward in there. Can you come through and, you know, do your thing?" And what he meant by that was, I was known for the questioning, right? I had, and I say this, I don't say this with pride. Trust me, I don't say this with pride, because I really ended up, when I started working at the chapel, I really, you know, understood the power and the need for us to create bridges between different peoples from different backgrounds, and sort of inclusivity and all that. But back then, again, this is where I was at. Like, they had J witness services, right? I would go there and I would question person with all these questions, and they would stop showing up, right? And so they wanted a sort of repeat performance, but just with the rabbi this time, right?
Sure.
And I'm like, all right, I haven't really had a conversation with a rabbi, but again, maybe it's in my hubris, right? That I felt like, well, he's wrong, right? I've studied enough religion to know just religion in general wrong. Let me go there and ask him some questions, right? I went there, and this mensch of a human being, right? This righteous rabbi, right? He answered my questions in the way I needed to be answered, right? And so I immediately went to try to chip away at him believing in particular things, right? And he said, "You know what? We're not trying to, Jules, we're not trying to get you to believe anything, right? Hey, just be a good person.
Oh, yeah.
Be a good person. You believe in, the oneness of creation, the oneness of God. You're good with us, right?"
Yeah, you're good.
And he said, if you, and first of all, that took me aback, because I'm looking for that hard sell. I wasn't used to.
Right.
We're good. Do you? I wasn't used to that, right?
Right.
So one, that piqued my curiosity, but then he also said something. Is that he said, if you look at history and you look at the Jewish people, Judaism has worked for the Jewish people, right? And that was a simple statement, right?
Yeah.
it was a simple statement, and I remember thinking about that, right? And I'm like, wow, I've analyzed different peoples, different religion. I haven't analyzed, Jewish people, or I haven't explored or investigated that. And I've only understood Judaism and the Jewish people through the lens of other peoples, not through themselves, right?
Right.
I had it. And to me, even as a intellectual curiosity, that was a lacuna, that was a gap. And I'm like, oh no, that's wrong. And I would say during my exploration, as I studied, right? And so he would give me a book. He would give me a book like, hey, I was interested now. He would give me a book every day or two since I was locked in my cell all day, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd read about, Yiddishkeit. He was a Reformed rabbi, but his first book he gave me was To Be a Jew, which is from an Orthodox rabbi, right? And so, again, he wasn't like saying like, you have to believe the way I believe. It was just kind of more of a, hey, this is all the flavors of what Judaism has to offer. And, read, enjoy, right? And I learned, right, through that statement that he mentioned about how Judaism has worked for the Jewish people. I remember now I'm looking back at the history that I was aware of, and I look like, wow, the Jewish people have been persecuted continuously for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Yet not only are they living in a way that allows them to survive and thrive in whatever era, whatever generation they exist in whatever country for thousands of years, retain their language, their customs, right? Which is it's just a marvel. It's just, without question, it's a marvel, right? They're able to do that. And not only that, to introduce the most significant God idea into the world that has led to impacted billions of people, right? Like, you think of all the other religions that sprung up out of this original, when I say God idea, it's a real original revelation from God and relationship with God, right? That just impacted the entire world, right? And so I was looking at all this, I'm like, the Jewish people, that's the proof I was looking for the existence of God, for the existence of God. It's his people, right? And when that light bulb clicked, right? When that light bulb clicked, I just fell more in love, right? And I realized that there was a God, there was a personal God, right? And this wasn't just, again, just one text or one book or one paragraph or one line. This was book by book by book, conversation by conversation, trying to explore, trying to speak and connect with Hashem in the confines of this cell. And I'll add to that, I was separated. Remember, I'm separated from my family, my friends, from who I was, and how people related to me when I was free, right? And I was in this kind of wilderness of exploring myself, of what I believed in and what I wanted to be for the first time, without the sort of what I would say sort of influences that I was so stuck on previously, right? Of what the outside culture, what my culture, what anybody else thinks about me, right? And I'm just like, this is it. This is Emes. This is Hashem. How do I be a part of this, right? And that's how I kind of went towards this walk of faith that I'm on now.
A lot of those things I've never known, right? And so it's good to hear you really just kind of open up and kind of share all this stuff, man. Like we say in every interview that we do, like, I wish we had hours with people, because you guys start talking about things, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I want
so many more questions.
So many more questions. I'm like, we didn't prepare for this question. We want to talk about this too. And so maybe one day we'll do a part 2 or something.
Well, luckily we're neighbors.
I'm down, right? Man. Or you can see me on Shabbos and we can have a conversation.
Then we can talk about it, right? but we can't record it on Shabbos though.
True that.
So we want to talk about family. We want to shift a little bit, and because you're a family man now, right? So, but on top of that, you're a very accomplished individual, right? Bachelor of Arts degree in sociology, master's degree in social work, and now a doctorate's degree in social work. Like, first of all, big mazel tov.
Yes, big
mazel tov. We're very, very proud of you, right? But you're also very serious about your Torah studies, right? Like you're in a, and correct me if I don't say it right, but you're in a Hilchos Shabbos program right now.
Yes.
And that's kind of like, that's on the road of getting smicha, right? Getting ordained, you right? Am I
yeah, well, you get smicha in that specific topic for sure. Yeah, I'm in a Hilchos Shabbos program through Yeshivas Iyun Halacha, through Rav David Ostrov. He's the one teaching it. He's the Talmud of Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, right? And so, yeah, I'm learning about learn about Shabbos, right?
Right,
So
right.
yeah,
And for those who may not know, Shabbos is another way that we would say Shabbat, right? So
yeah, I got my minhag, my custom is Ashkenaz, right? And so I tend to pronounce things Shabbat. I'll say Shabbat Shalom, but I'm also good Shabbos.
yeah, no problem, no problem. So with all that, you're a family man. So my question is, how do you do it all, right? How do you make time for everything that you got going on?
Mhm.
Sometimes I wonder that question, right?
Yeah.
Wonder that question a lot. I mean, let me add back. Let me double back a little bit and say that when I said like the Jewish people's how they lived in this world and how they've been able to survive and thrive, right?
Yeah.
Part of that, what I had glimpsed, right, wasn't simply they survived and thrived, but how, right? And it was dedication to family and community, right? And so it starts with I seen how the family was arranged, right? And to me, that it became ideal, right? Like, and even when I got out, released from prison, me, big part of conversion is it's not just you acquiring a certain amount of knowledge or learning certain things. It's how you assimilate into the Jewish community, right?
Sure.
And so I seen all these Jewish families in my neighborhood and how their families were set up, and I'm like, wow, I want this. And
Wow.
so I will say this, right? It was me becoming a family man, right? Me getting into this and trying to handle all this stuff. It was a road. So I'll just add this. We can go into this later, but I'll add to this, right? When I got out of jail, I wasn't with my wife at the time, right? And so I didn't even have. I was trying to rebuild or reconnect or trying to create that sort of family, that family vibe. But in order to do that, I also knew like I had to bring something to the table, so to speak, right? I'm getting out of jail with nothing to my name, right? And so
Right.
I knew like the only way for me to even have a family, right, was to just to go get out and go super hard and really just no breaks and just continue to put my foot on the gas and go, right? And I think that allowed me to accomplish what I've had in this time. Well, Hashem allowed me to accomplish this, right? But that was my strategy, utilizing Hashem as giving me that sort of opportunity. And then when I got back with my family, I wouldn't be able to do this by myself, right? When my wife is an integral part to this, right? Right now, who's with my baby, right? Who's with my son right now, right?
Right.
I can't do any work. I can't do this, right? She makes the home functional for me, right? Functional for my family. And I do understand too that I don't want this to be a permanent state of affairs, right? Where I am just swamped down with work or school. I finished school, so now I'm getting more and more family time, right? And I would think like in what has helped me manage it more than anything is Shabbos, right? So I know, right? She knows, my kids know that there's a moment in time, right? Every week, well, there will be 25 hours, right? Where there will be no work, there'll be no school,
Beautiful.
there'll be no, none of that, no phones, none of that, right? It's just me connecting with God, with Hashem, and with my family, and spending quality time when we're having conversations and discussing challenges and whatever's going on in their life, right? And being able to connect on that level without sort of anything getting in the way. Shabbos has helped make that possible, right? Judaism has made that possible.
That's beautiful.
Beautiful.
And we say that all the time. I mean, it's something just so special about Shabbat. Like you get the opportunity to just unwind, to get rid of the mundane, to just really focus on family, have that personal conversation with your spouse, to talk about, things that have to do with meaningful stuff, right? And then connecting with your kids more. So we couldn't agree more. And I think you elaborating a little bit more on marriage and family. So you've been married for how many years now? I want to guess and say it's been 3, but I could be wrong.
It was a good guess. So we got married in September of 2020, right?
Okay.
Got married here in Irvine a couple months after I finished my my conversion program. But we've been together since 2014. So, we met each other in 2014. We were together for most of that. There was that brief kind of thing that I hinted at a little bit earlier, right? But I've known her since 2014, and we've been married since 2020.
Wow. And you guys have 3 beautiful children together. Can you talk a little bit about how did you guys meet, since it's been 2014 to marriage at 2020?
Yeah. So I like to joke, right? This is my running joke, that it's your typical Jewish love story.
Yeah.
Jewish girl meets non-Jewish boy in prison, right?
Yeah.
No, obviously I'm being facetious. It's not your typical Jewish love story, but I had a contraband cell phone in prison, right? I mean, we all need our cell phones, right? So for sure, me being in prison, I definitely wanted and used the cell phone. And I had my Instagram account. It was a different account than the one I had now. I got locked out of it. Whole long story, right?
Okay.
But nonetheless, right? But nonetheless, right? I'm on my Instagram, right? This was 2014, and I remember doing a hashtag search for Star of David, right? The Star of David hashtag. Just I was interested, and then I remember seeing this beautiful woman just appear with like a flag of Israel behind her, right? And I'm like, wow, who is this, right? It's kind of like when it's just like a rush of feelings and thoughts hit me, but then again, me also being very cognizant of where I'm at and like, all right, calm down. I wasn't Yehudah at the time, I was, but I was like, calm down, whatever. I click like, no extra thoughts about it. Right?
Yeah.
She clicked like back, and we ended up following each other on Instagram, but we didn't have any sort of interaction. So it was just that, right?
Right.
When people follow you, follow them back. You might be interested in their life, but that's what it was. Then it was about 6 months later. I remember we started like liking each other's posts a little bit more. I guess that was like internet. How you flirt on the internet?
I guess so.
Right?
Yeah.
This was before DMs. So when I tried to have a conversation with her, I had to go back to like a super old one of her posts and like this comment on her. Right? That's how we did it before the age of DMs. Right? And
So
she immediately responded. We immediately started talking, and I remember that was July 6th, 2014, when we first started talking. Within a week, we were like officially a couple together. Now, what does that mean when she stayed in Canada at the time? She was in Vancouver, Canada, and I was in a California prison, right?
Right.
And at the time, I remember when I met her, I believe I had about 9 years to go. This was 2014. My release date, technically I'm supposed to be still in jail right now. My release date was in the summer of 2023. So when I met her, I was like, look, I got 9 years to go. They're talking about changing the law, but it's just talk. Put it in your head that I got 9 years to go. And then she essentially would say like, oh, don't worry, I'm davening. We hope we get out in half that time. But as with Hashem, I ended up getting out in half that time, right? So from her mouth to God's ears, but that's how I met. And if the relationship was hard, right? I believe she was 24 at that time, right? Dealing with this, this guy in prison. She was raised from, right? She wasn't always like, people have their own journeys and paths, right?
Yeah.
She was raised from, and she didn't get necessarily. It wasn't like her family and friends were like, yeah, you found the right guy, right? Yeah, you're doing a quarter century in prison in California. And how logistically that works out, that you have a kid from a previous marriage, and you're somehow going to be able to connect and be together when he has 9 years, but you hope that he gets out in half that time, right? It just wasn't the sort of things that would have people look at it and be like, oh yeah, this is off to a great start. I see a great future in this, right? So, and it was tough. I knew I knew her daughter from the previous marriage, my daughter now, since she was 3 years old, right? And so I'm just communicating most of our relationship from my daughter, from my wife, was through a phone. And so I had to use it when the correctional officers wasn't looking. We're video chatting. I would only see her once a year, right? Like she would come down and fly out there to visit me once a year. So we did that. We actually did that for years, right? Like it was about 3 years. And eventually we actually, my first son I was incarcerated when I had my first son, right? That's a whole nother story, right? But and yeah, so I mean, I would just say it was super rough, but I think what ended up happening is we forged a particular type of bond and relationship, right? In that it wasn't facilitated by us doing activities together. All right, you know, sometimes you go out and do this and you go on doing that and you're both enjoying the experience. No, it was just us having conversations, right?
Yeah.
Nothing, no shared life together or shared experiences together, but us just really getting to know each other on that. Just, I'm interested in you, you're interested in me, and this is all we have, right? Is that this is all we have, is whatever connection we could create and bond we could create through this sort of avenue, right? And so now that we have sort of activities to do, right, that just enhances it. But I think that was what was needed in order for us to kind of have the connection that allows us to outlast all the sort of stressors, right? You know, we all go through stressors, right? Prison is a big stressor, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, every time I hear this story, you know, I got to hear it a few times, but, you know, just to hear that you guys kept it together. I mean, I know there was it was rocky, obviously, in between times of you guys growing together, but the fact that you guys are married now, 3 kids, I mean, it's a blessing. I mean, and I look at how you guys are really growing as a couple too. It's so beautiful to see that and to see the fight, and you guys push through a lot of stuff. So, I mean,
thank you. All praises to God, because one, I shouldn't be here right now if we were going by whatever sentence. We shouldn't necessarily be together. It doesn't make sense that some random Jewish woman in Canada connects with some guy that wants to be a Jew, right? In prison, right? It doesn't happen. So that's I thank God every single day for bringing my wife, bringing my family, and allowing this to happen, right? It's a blessing that it's still surreal. It's still, sometimes I want to pinch myself, like I remember being in the jail cell. I remember being lonely. I remember having nothing. I remember being like written off. I remember like my life is over. Like what is there, right? And now to be here where I'm at, I just, Baruch Hashem, praise God. Praise God. That's all I can say.
Absolutely.
You know, I wish I wish people could like actually see Yehudah and his family like in action, living as a Jewish family here. It's one of the most inspiring things to be able to actually see it, you know, on a daily, consistent basis, and them involved in the community, and you know, their kids in school, growing, they're awesome parents, and it's just it's just really cool to see. Really cool to see. I know we don't have a lot of time, and there's so many other questions that we had and we wanted to talk about it, but we might have to do another part two. But I kind of want to take a quick turn, and we can kind of get ready to start ending. You know, I want to kind of talk about something that's kind of like hot in the Jewish community right now. You know, I guess just within being a Jew of color, like, have you experienced any type of negativity, you know, with you living as a Jew of color now? And if so, can you share maybe a quick experience and how you handled it? I think a lot of people are very curious to know about a lot of these issues and how people are kind of getting through them.
Yeah, it's a great question, right? It's a great question. Well, I will say first, I don't put any qualifiers on my identity as a Jew, right? Okay. I'm a Jew, right? Yeah. I'm a Jew. Now, we might talk about minhag. I'm Ashkenaz. That's my minhag, right? But I'm a Jew because I'm very hesitant to adopt America's color-coded social constructs and put that on Jewish identity, when typically that's not how we view us as a people, you know, traditionally, right? For thousands of years, that hasn't been. Now it is a reality, right? I'm a black man in America. Nothing changed that. And the same sort of, you know, historical experiences of being black, the perception of others and my perception of my response to that perception, right? Or how I think other people are viewing me, right? Does impact my life. I haven't had any, I found, since I'm a Torah observant Jew, right? Like, there's more of a commonality. People may be interested in, like, oh, what's your story, right? Okay. You know, did you convert or this and that, right? That might come from essentially, like, you know, the majority of Jews in America may present as not being black like me, right? And so that's obvious. Hey, what's your story? I don't look at it, and I understand other people's experiences, so I don't want to I don't want to say is my experience speaks for anybody else besides me, right? I don't want to extrapolate to anybody who's melanated, right? Is that generally speaking, I believe people are genuinely interested in people's stories, right? The reason people watch TV,
we believe that,
right? They want to know, right? Not only that, imagine you haven't been so moved by Yiddishkeit, by Judaism, to change your life, right? And structure your life in a way to just follow Jewish law or what and all that, right? How did this other person do it, right? That's just interesting. It doesn't mean you're going to do it. It doesn't mean like you're thinking anything else more than that because they are Black or they are melanated or they have color, right? I think that's more so the what people are after, that sort of thing, right? And I haven't had any direct experiences of somebody of treating me in a way that made me feel less than, because I am, Black and because I'm Jewish, right? I haven't had that. I've heard of other experiences, and I definitely believe I definitely believe other experiences to be real because I understand Jews are human beings as well, right? And just because you say I am adopting a particular mode of being in this world, I'm trying to follow these particular laws, doesn't mean that you don't get angry. Doesn't mean that you have no sort of prejudice or bias. It doesn't mean that your brain is automatically registers things a certain way, and when you don't see that or it doesn't meet your expectations, that you may noticeably respond in a way, that affects other people, right? And so, I think more so than anything, right? It's putting ourselves out here. I think you're doing it beautifully. So super shout outs to y'all as a family, right? And to Aish for even giving you the platform, right? Because I often talk about people talking about inclusivity or diversity because it sounds good, right? These are great expressions and these are the terms we use. But if we are only looked at as the others, or you bring us on, hey, let's talk to the Black person or the Black Jew or this and that, right? No. Put people in leadership, right? Put people with their own sort of platforms, right? And I super respect Aish, right, doing this, and I respect what y'all doing this, right, because you're showing that it's not a sideshow, right? We are Jews who live lives, who have our own sort of experiences, right? Our diversity can enhance Yiddishkeit, right? It can enhance by that sort of experience we're bringing, a way to look at it, are different ways to go about bringing upon unity, right, and inclusivity, right? Like
absolutely,
we could add that to it, right? So again, I'll just say that, like, I haven't had that sort of direct experience. If anything, I've experienced a lot more. I've experienced not just regular racism, like from other people, right? But now this anti-Semitism on top of that, right? So I've experienced a lot more anti-Semitism than I've had experienced racism, right? So that's my reality. And so, I know my number one response to that is, you know what? I'm just going to cling more to Hashem, to God, and I'm just going to try to be more Jewish, right?
That's right.
Yes.
Myself, right? It's not about working on other people. It's about working on myself. And then, right, maybe I'll have that much more of an impact, but I want to do it through empathy as opposed to condemnation, as opposed to as opposed to making other people feel bad in order to kind of rectify some of the struggles, the real struggles with racism that I've faced as being Black in America.
Right.
Beautifully said.
I'm so glad you said everything that you said and how you said it, and then you didn't just say it, but you also, I feel like you also gave a remedy as well. Like how you said, when you experience anti-Semitism, what are you going to do? I'm going to be more Jewish. I'm going to turn up more, right? I'm about to get me a blinged out kippah. You know what I mean? Right? But I want to really, really let people know I'm proud. You know what I mean? So I think that is such a beautiful remedy, because we have that as a question, like, okay, well, what is the remedy for some of these things, and it's not to cover up or to hide or to, and that may be some people's go-to, but I think what you're saying is really, really going to elevate the Jewish people 100%.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I guess exiting out, I don't want to exit out, because there's, even your explanation, I was like, I have more questions. We can, but we have this thing that that we just started doing. It's called the Fast Five, right? And so we have like 5
I'm already
questions.
nervous. I'm already nervous.
We got 5 quick questions that we'll just kind of throw out there, and then off the top of the dome, short response or however you feel about it, and we'll take it out from here. So,
right.
Fast Five. My life's motto is.
I keep Hashem before me always.
Beautiful.
I try. I
Yeah,
try. How about that, right?
Yes. And I've learned that. I remember you. I think I asked you one time we were studying together, and I think you showed me that verse on your talus, right?
Yeah.
And I asked you about it, and it was from then, like you showed me in the Mishnah Berurah, where it was kind of talking about that, and I've come to allow that to actually be one of my go-tos daily as well, right? And I remembered it in Hebrew, Shaviti Hashem Lenegdi Tamid, right? And so like that's really something I do a lot in my prayer time. So I love that.
Awesome. And number 2. So what is your favorite part of being a husband?
Having somebody that cares about me, cares about my well-being, cares about what I'm going through, right? And knows me. A lot of people have known me, right? She knows me. So just me being a husband to my particular wife, right? It's a blessing, right? And so just to have her know me and be there for me is the best part of being a husband.
Beautiful. Favorite part of being a father?
It's when I watch my children, right? I look at them and I see all the things that went wrong for me, right? And me seeing like all the sort of the innocence, right? The how they're just so inquisitive and they want so much and they don't know that this might be hard or this might be a barrier or and just me being able to share in their innocence and to share in what they're experiencing at this particular age and me being able to help build them up into being the Jews that could impact the world. That's my favorite part of being a father.
Beautiful. All right. Number 4, most memorable moment.
Getting out of prison. Right. That's why I have a couple memorable. I want to throw my marriage in there. I want to throw some births of children in there.
Right.
But the life-changing experience more so than anything was freedom, right? So getting out of prison and hugging my mom and my sister. Yeah.
Wow, beautiful. Last one.
What is your favorite Shabbat meal?
Oh, my favorite Shabbos meal? Woo! Well, one, because just in case my wife's listening, all the meals are my favorite. But to be specific, right? I like her Moroccan fish.
I like her Moroccan fish too, so much.
Bro, it's crazy. It's crazy.
We love it.
I'm waiting to come through y'all place for a Shabbos meal. So
I know.
I hear, Daryl tell me all the time. Right?
See, I told you. I'll be talking about your food, man. Yehudah, man, thank you so much for elevating us all. I can speak for my wife and I. This was definitely an elevated conversation for us. We've learned a lot. There's a lot of things we learned about you that we didn't even know yet, and which I think is very cool. But we really, really hope that our viewers, our listeners have really been able to pull something from this conversation right here. Yehudah, I think we both really believe that you and your family are a gift to the Jewish community. You guys are doing some beautiful things. You guys are being lights for not just the Jewish community, but you guys are lights to the world as well. So thank you so much. We wish you nothing but happiness and peace and blessings to everything that you and your family do.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure on this show. It's been a pleasure to know you. And it's been a pleasure to brag about what y'all are doing to so many of my friends and everywhere I go. I was just in Baltimore the other day talking about y'all, right? And
man,
you make the Jewish people, you put us in the best possible light. We love you. We love you. We love you. The community needs you. We need you. Thank you so much for your impact on us and what you're doing to broader society and to broader Yiddishkeit, to Klal Yisrael.
Wow.
Wow.
with success.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so is there how can people find you? How can people find Dr. Yehudah Pryce?
Well, I am Yehudah Pryce on Instagram. I also have a consulting company, Raish Lakish consulting.com. You can reach me out there. Any sort of inquiries, YehudahPryce@gmail.com.
Awesome.
Beautiful. Make sure you guys go support. We'll make sure that we put all of his social links down in the description. And thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you on the next one. Episode 6 with Yehudah Pryce. I'm so happy that we were able to get him on, because that was another very incredible, elevating conversation. I feel like we know him more.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know. I'm really hoping that everybody that listened was able to really just get impacted, inspired, for sure.
I mean, I was again, and we've heard this story multiple times, but just to hear it from him again personally, it's like, wow, just to hear how he was once, once this person to now who he is today. And to know that we have a great relationship, that we're literally neighbors with him, but just to be able to have that time to now, I feel like our relationship is going to grow so much more, and we have even more to talk about with him. But absolutely an amazing interview. This was episode number 6. And wow, like we said, we hope that there was something that you took from this, for sure.
So again, make sure you guys support Yehudah Pryce. We'll put, again, all his social platforms and everything, his contact information down in the description, and just support everything that he has going on.
Absolutely.
He's a phenomenal human being. So if you enjoy this Aish content, please make sure you take the time to subscribe and to like it. There's so many incredible videos and content on the Aish channel. And also make sure you guys rate the Aish podcast on Apple as well.
And if you want to find us, you'll be able to find us at House of Lev across the board. That's YouTube and Instagram.
Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you on the next one.